Hey, thank you for joining me on Go Far Girl. Today I'm here with Kat. Kat is a backpacker turned adrenaline junkie turned travel blogger. At 19, Kat left college, launched into a life of full-time travel. And now over a decade later, she's visited 65 countries, van lifed across the US, hitchhiked solo, and built a life entirely on her own terms. So we're going to walk through how it started, the seasons of long-term travel, what she's learned. You guys are going to love her story. She's so much fun. So Kat, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chantel. Yes.
I have to admit, as I'm reading like all your stuff, I'm like, so awesome, so awesome. And then it's like hitchhike solo, and the mom in me is like, okay, well, hold on. Maybe we maybe we back up a tiny bit.
I definitely did not go from zero to hitchhiking immediately. That was definitely through the course of several years. And I have to admit, most of those stories my mom does not know. For the better.
Well, bless you for keeping her in bliss because so let's back it all the way up. So you were in college and what, just realized like this is not what I want to do? Like, did you go kind of stir crazy? Like, what led you to figure out a different
Yeah.
way?
Yeah. So I grew up quite sheltered. It's funny because so it's not that we didn't travel, but every time we did travel, first of all, it was very rare, but it was either to see family, it was with a completely planned itinerary with printed out maps, before GPS. Hotels were always booked and we were never alone. If we were to go to Europe, it was with a tour guide. If we were to go to usually it was Shanghai, it was to see family. So I didn't know that a backpacking was even something that existed. So I was really lucky when I went to boarding school and I happened to have a Korean roommate and I met other international kids. So, I begged my mom every summer, like, hey, can I go travel? Can I go travel? And she was like, when you turn 17, I'll let you go on your first trip. So at 17, I did exactly what I learned to do. I traveled to meet people. Everything was planned. I had all my flights. But the first stop was Amsterdam. And my friend literally the night before told me, hey, family has suddenly come and you can't stay at my place anymore. I internally freaked out. But it was the first time, I looked online and said okay, what do I do on a budget? And that was the first time that I knew what a hostel was. I went to a hostel and I met my first backpacker, and he was a guy who was doing 10 months in Europe, and I was blown away. I didn't know that this was something that existed.
Yeah.
Um, so after that, this was summertime. I was graduating high school and I asked my mom, hey, can I take a gap year? But I never really thought that it was something that I would actually do. So, I asked, but my mom said no. And I said, okay, I'll go to college. um, 3 months into college, I realized that I had so much unstructured time, but I also wasn't really caring about anything. My whole goal for all of high school and even middle school was literally to get into college. And I got into college and I didn't have a further goal, my mom is kind of a tiger mom, the
Yeah.
A minus, have to have A minus type grades. So yeah, I just didn't really know what to do with my time anymore. And so, I thought back to that guy that I had met backpacking and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a PowerPoint. And during Thanksgiving break, I presented my mom a PowerPoint of the gap year that I wanted to take. Yeah.
That's amazing. What was her reaction? Like, I mean, you obviously put work into it, so it wasn't just like, oh, like on a whim. What did she say?
It took months for her to say yes. At first, she even started kind of bribing me. She was like, if you go back to college, I'll get you a car. Oh, if you want to start a business, I'll help, direct you to some family friends. And I was like, no, I think I want to do the traveling thing. And,
Yeah.
At some point you're an adult. And, as long as I was able to go back to school, which thankfully my university was very lenient, they said that you could take a year. And so I decided to finish my freshman year and then to take my gap year.
I love it. So where did you go? Where was that first like brave outing on your own?
So it was 6 months in South America and 6 months in Asia. And at first so, and I'm so glad I did this because I told you I grew up quite sheltered. I really, didn't know how to live on my own. Even in university, you have cafeterias. I didn't know how to cook. I knew how to cook eggs and heat canned soup. So I basically decided for my first month I was going to go to a Spanish school and learn Spanish because, in case you don't know, in South America, it's really hard to get by if you don't have any Spanish. So it was also a way for me to kind of get used to, you know, being on my own. And that first that first week was terrifying. Like, it was by far the scariest thing I'd done because I'd never, I'd taken a flight by myself, but never to go somewhere like by myself. And I
Yeah.
remember I had organized like airport transport to take me to the school. And that first week, I really thought that, everybody was going to rob me. Like, I was not, I was like socially so anxious. And I remember before leaving, uh, thinking that the scariest thing was going to be eating on my own. And, looking back on it, I can't believe that that's something that I would be so scared of.
Isn't that funny how you just have these thoughts in your head and you kind of get yourself into this little tunnel, but then you're like, "Oh, I eat by myself all the time, literally all the time now."
Exactly, exactly. And that first part of the trip was really structured. So I did the school, and then at some point I was like, you know what? I can't keep, because I kept like delaying and delaying leaving, and I was like, you know what, I did this trip to like be on my own. I'm gonna go on my own. So finally, after 5 weeks, I decided to go to this tiny island called Tortuguero, where you can see these like nesting turtles. And that first day, it was like a remote island. That first day, it had rained. I couldn't use my Spanish because I literally knew Spanish for 5 weeks. And I opened my bag and the shampoo exploded.
Oh
And I
gosh.
just sobbed. I sobbed all afternoon. And then I was thinking, I was so lonely. And I was like, you know what? I could go back home and think of myself as giving up. Or I can take this moment to just cry my heart out, realize that I'm totally alone, and grow. And that night, I saw turtles laying eggs, and it was so beautiful
What a
that
magical day. Oh.
exactly, exactly. Like that was my first like I guess like the moment that I really realized that, you have some like tenacity in you. It's like in a moment of hardship, it's when you realize that you have the strength to go on. And I think a lot of traveling does is like, you have those hard moments and you choose to continue going. And this like applies to all aspects of life.
But that's so strong of you though, even if you didn't realize it at the time. I mean, to be so scared, but still like be able to like have that conversation with yourself and you're like, you're gonna regret it if you go home. Like you've got more in you. Like basically suck it up and
Exactly.
let's go. Let's try again. And then it ended
Exactly.
up by just opening up the entire world for you and changing everything just in that little one internal conversation. That is so cool.
Yeah. And that was like after that was the first time that I had solo traveled, and that's when you meet like the backpackers who help you. Like this is how you do the hustles. This is how you get like the cheap deals. Um, and actually, shortly after, I had joined this like giant group trip because my mom was not going to let me solo travel. So it was like a 2 week like solo travel bit, and then I was going to join this like overland van for like 3 months.
Okay.
But I had that like 2 week spark of like solo travel that I joined the van. And after 2 weeks, I was like, I think I'm going to go my own way.
You're like, this is really peoply.
My mom was not happy about it. But yeah, that was really like the beginning. And, I'm really grateful for all the people that I met. They like that you really depend on people in the beginning. Um, because you just don't really know how to do anything. It's
But
wild.
travelers are so helpful. People want
So
to
helpful.
share those experiences and want to pass that forward. And I think a lot of people think solo travel is going to be lonely and you're going to be by yourself, but you're not. Like you end up
Yeah.
by meeting so many people and just having like the most unique conversations and like these perspectives from all these different people. Whereas when you travel with a group or even just like with one person, you kind of spend time with that person or that group and you don't get that outside experience. It's so fun. I had this conversation like I was in York at a coffee shop and I talked to like this 98-year-old man who lived there for like
That's
2
incredible.
hours. Like I want him to be my best friend. He was so cool. But you just learn all these like random stories and things and it's not lonely. It's really really the opposite of what you think going into it.
Exactly. I think on the top of a hostel, I remember seeing that you're not by yourself. You're just with a bunch of friends you haven't met yet.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's a circle as well. And it's the same with the hitchhiking. Like at first, all you do is really, take because I don't have that much to give. And I'm such a newbie that, in the beginning, you and even though it's not like money or food, it's like information that I don't know how to then give. But then and this is what I call, like, I think traveling has seasons where, like, what I travel now, like how I travel now, is so different than it was 10 years ago. And in the beginning, it's you're you're very dependent on like other backpackers to kind of teach you the ways, and then you learn to be independent, and then you kind of like go on your own way a little bit, and then you end up gaining all this knowledge that you then you meet somebody who's on the road for like 2 weeks, and you're like, oh, come here, little bird, like I'll teach you, like I'll show you all the tips and the tricks. And this kind of translates with the hitchhiking as well. Like at first, it's amazing because I feel like during those years of solo hitchhiking, I took a lot. People would always give you food. I went on these incredible adventures, and now if I ever see somebody on the side of the road, I am guaranteed to be taking them because I know there's so many people who have helped me. It's kind of like that, like pay it forward type thing.
Yeah. I'm still scared about the hitchhiking. I'm not there yet, but I see where you're going with it. I see the vision. I just am not quite there yet. But
I think I have learned that like 99.9% of people and situations are good and incredible.
yeah.
Um, for sure, there are the 0.1 to 0.5% of sketchy situations. And I
And
feel
those
like
are the
those
ones
are
I binge watch on Crime TV.
I mean, like, definitely there's been moments where I'm like, this could end very badly. But looking back on it, and you're like, actually, that turned into like an incredible week. Like, I remember I went into the jungle for a week in Myanmar with my mom. Was very scared because there was no internet. Because I was hitchhiking, and he was like, hey, do you want to like come live with my cousin in the jungle for a week? And it was honestly, it was one of the best weeks. We literally every day just fished. We like roamed around, cut like wild pineapples, and just like subsisted.
Cat.
Uh,
If my children listen to this podcast, absolutely not. Okay. But good for you, girl.
yeah,
No,
and
that's
I do
amazing.
feel like it. Mhm.
I was just gonna say, I feel like I have an alter ego when I travel though, because I'm sitting here going like, absolutely not. But I know dang well if I was like walking down a street and someone's like, "Do you want to come see this cool like alleyway where we could?" I'll be like, "Oh hell yeah, let's go!" Like I do weird crap like that
Exactly.
when I travel all the time that I would never do like in Seattle, right? Like so, I get it. I get it. I'm being just funny, but like I do get it. We do weird like we're. It's just a different life. It's like not real.
I almost think you're in like a different mindset because it's weird. I feel like I've done all these crazy things, but I have the same feeling probably in like all of America. Whenever I'm in America, I'm like, oh, I'm home. And I feel like I'm a lot more self-conscious actually
Yes.
versus like out there,
Yes.
which it's a weird split. I'm almost
Yeah.
Hippocratic actually.
Yeah, no, it is. It's totally different. That's why I always say it's like an alter ego. It's like I'm more confident. I don't care what people think. I will be silly. I will do like crazy things, like things that terrify me. I'm not scared of all of a sudden for some reason. Um, but when I'm home, like I get anxiety going to Costco sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And same with like going to social events. Like I feel more social anxiety going to something when I'm at home versus like when I know I'm completely by myself and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to go to a music festival like by myself. But
Because
maybe it's because like you don't
people you
have
know
another
are
option.
judgy.
Yeah, okay, that could be too.
You know, like they have an opinion about you, and people you don't know don't.
Yeah, that's very
That's what it is
true.
for me because people just don't care, and I love that about them.
Yeah. And honestly, going on the social aspect, I think one of the best things about starting so young is that, like, I used to be, I wouldn't say introverted. I think I wanted to be extroverted, but had an introverted shell. Um,
Mhm.
and so the traveling really brought out the fact that, like, oh, I'm able to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And and that has persisted like throughout my life, and I'm so glad I learned that like very early on, because I actually am very extroverted. I just like didn't know what to say or like
That's
how to go up to
cool.
people.
Yeah. So travel gave you that gift too that you can now like use all over. So after that first trip, did you go back to school and kind of go back to like quote unquote normal life for a while and then hit the road again, or were you just like free bird after that?
I think after that first year, I really realized that it was going to be a part of my life forever. And I really wanted to design my life to be around it. But I did go back to school. Based on how my parents are, like, not finishing university was not an option. But any chance I got, I went to like the weirdest places. So during study abroad, I went to Israel. And then while I was in Israel, I found a job in Malta. So I lived in Malta I took a semester off and lived in there. And I think like throughout travel, like, I would go on these road trips or like I was also in Missouri. So, whatever you can explore in the Midwest, I really tried to do. And
Yeah.
I think the next scariest step was after graduating, I got a job in LA. And I was like, wow, I'm going to have to put, the traveling to rest for a little bit, and go to the office every day. And um, I guess like by chance, actually on the way back from university that last semester, um, I stopped at Great Smoky Mountains. It was the first national park I ever visited, which I'm embarrassed to say I was like 23 at the time. But I met my first van lifer and never heard of this culture before. And I guess it's the same as the backpacker. Like I just like, don't know these things.
Yeah.
And then I moved to LA, and a couple months in, I got into a fight with my roommate. And sitting on the beach that night, I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna go try van life. And I think it's the same repetitive of like, I would have been so scared if it was my first time, but because it was, I had gone out of my comfort zone so many times before, this was like the next step of like, okay, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
extremely uncomfortable, but I
Yeah.
know that I can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you bought a van? You didn't have one.
I didn't have one.
So
I bought
you
it, and I was very lucky. 1 week before buying it, or sorry, 1 week after I bought it, COVID happened. So I had like 2 months of just time to go to Home Depot every day and work on the van. And then I just, my lease was ending in 2 months. So I really needed to finish in 2 months. And then
yeah.
I lived out of it for like 2 years. But I was working full time. So it was a very different type of lifestyle. It was very busy. Like I woke up at 6 a.m. To either hike, work, and then drive, or wake up at 6 a.m. to drive, work, maybe have like lunch at a, nice arch, and then hike at night before bed. So it was a lot.
So that's amazing. So van life, so that was all US then. Um,
Yeah.
did you like have a plan with that? Like did you map out where you wanted to go? Did you stick to national parks or were you kind of just like, I don't know, this week I'd like to go to Arches and now I'm headed to Minnesota? Or how did you kind of plan that out?
Yeah, I went on very long road trips. So I still made my base in LA because my friends were there. Technically, my job was still there, but we never went back to the office. So that first week, that first trip, I would say that I divided into 3 trips. So my first trip was 6 weeks up and down the West Coast, and that was like a straight 6 weeks up and down. The other ones, and in van life, you get very tired of kind of doing the same thing. So, I feel like a lot of van life people don't say this, but it does get very exhausting and you really need to take breaks in between. So, I did have friends coming with me all the time, but then I would also take breaks after a couple of weeks. So, at the time, um, we would go, like, I would take like a friend's trip to Utah or a friend's trip to Mexico just to kind of break it up. But that second road trip was like 5 or 6 months. So including the time like going to Mexico and Utah. So it was like starting in LA all the way to Arizona, up to Montana, and then back down west. So it was very long. But
That's an
I
adventure.
I love America now. Like it's so funny because before, I was like, oh, I want to move to Europe. I want to like work and live in other places, and really living in the West Coast and seeing all that amazing nature, I realized America has incredible landscapes. Yeah.
And it's so diverse, right? I mean, think
So
between
diverse.
Arizona and Montana, just the amount of, I mean, you've got the mountains and glacial fed lakes and all of these like crazy peaks and animals and the Rockies. And then you go down to Arizona with like cactus and desert. Like it's just so unique. And the red rock, it
So
looks like you're on
unique.
another planet. So I think I need to appreciate that more too. And I have been lately. Like I went to Wisconsin a couple weeks ago and I was like, cool, cows. But like Wisconsin's beautiful. Oh my
It's
gosh. Like
amazing.
there's the prettiest lake I've ever seen. Um, and just we went on some great hikes. I mean, there's just it's just not what you think. There's just something so beautiful about all these different places and none of them are the same. And I love it.
I cannot remember if it's Wisconsin or Michigan, but there's this like ice cave. So in some winters it's cold enough that the lake literally freezes and you walk out and there's just ice caves there. And that's just something that you don't see in, maybe in like Siberia or something, but like you don't see that
Yeah.
in many other places.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredibly
No,
diverse. And I it made me really appreciate the country that I grew up in.
and it's there's so much of it too, right? I think a lot of people in Europe are like, "Oh, you guys never leave the country." Well, we could go to like 2 states in the time you could go to 4 countries. Like, I mean, it's big and there is a lot to see and do. And so I think that that's a good lesson too for some people who are like either hesitant to leave the country or just don't have like the time off to go for these big trips. You aren't missing out. I mean, of course the world is big and there's other things, but you can do some really cool things close to home too.
Exactly.
You
And I
don't
think
have to, yeah.
what's incredible about the US is that like people are really allowed to build these crazy roadside things, like build a house out of beer bottles or like make a miniature sculpture of, a random city in their backyard and then you just like go there and like look at it.
Yeah.
That is also something, those like Route 66 type things that I love stopping at.
I've been traveling with this girl from Canada for the last couple of weeks. She hosted me on a on Banff trip and then she hosted me in Alaska. And she's like, "America is a wonderland. You guys are just so extra about things." She's like, "I was researching this place called like Submitland and a big ball of yarn. You guys are just so extra and you're just into everything. It's so crazy." So it's funny to hear like other people's perspectives too. Like she's just from
Yeah.
Alberta. She's like not from that far away, but she's like, "America, it's a wonderland."
And honestly, my years in the Midwest, those are the types of things that you go to see. Like the world's largest birdhouse. I've seen the world's largest pencil, the a museum of vacuum history. Like they're just so
What?
bizarre.
I'm going to Carhenge in Nebraska in July for a trip. Like,
Oh my
why? I don't
god.
know.
I think I know which one that is too, but I might be confusing. It's not the Texas because in Texas they have that like car thing. It's different. It's different.
Yeah, I guess it's laid out just like Stonehenge, but like with like
But
spray
made out of
painted
cars.
cars. Yeah, so
It's
I'll
such an
report
American
back on
thing.
that, but why?
Car hinge review.
Yes.
Oh
Is it worth it? Did the aliens build it? Oh no, what's happening?
oh, yeah.
So funny. Well, I love this. So where was next? Okay, so we did like hitchhike or we backpacked and hitchhiked and then van life. But then you've been living abroad for a while, right? So
Yeah.
that was kind of your
So
next transition.
exactly. So I guess this is like my next season, where like after the van life and the digital nomading, that was really where I got the idea to start blogging. And I think every one of these like major life steps, it's the push to be uncomfortable. And so, I had like a very nice cushy job. I had my like a home for the first time in my life. And, having to sell my cars, move out of LA and quit my job, it was a different type of fear than when I was in university. Cause back then, like no matter how much I traveled, there was a limited amount of time, and I always knew what I was coming back to. And I was starting the blog, but it was a move of which I had nothing to come back to, and it was extremely terrifying. It was extremely terrifying. And so, I mean, I think the leaving isn't as scary anymore, but it's really like the leaving with having like no backup plan. And yeah, I admit, like it was like the next step.
Well, plus
Um,
you had worked for those things and then you were just letting them go.
yeah,
So you had worked to afford a car and a place, and then you were just like, okay, bye. Like that's different than not having
it's
anything to
very
begin with,
different.
or being in college and knowing you could go back to your mom if you needed to, or go back to a dorm or whatever. But now this was your stuff that you were parting ways with. That's different.
Yeah. That is a very good perspective I never thought of. But yeah, it did feel like a lot more of a struggle. I think I struggled for like months, but um, a couple of decisions, and I was like, you know what? In January, I'm going to drive back to LA. I'm gonna sell everything. I think I sold and packed up everything in like a week. And then I went to go visit my mom, and I was heading to Asia. And for the last couple, like 3 years, I think this was starting in January of 2022. I've spent a lot of my life in Asia. So at first, I was still doing like the backpacking thing. I think I did a lot, probably close to a year of like backpacking how I used to. Less hitchhiking, but still a bit of that, still a little bit of couch surfing. I still do it, but on rare occasions. And I think now it's a bit more about like the settling. So um, now I'm starting to pick more like places that I want to go back to year after year. And it's crazy to say, but I think this is actually the next hard step where what makes me uncomfortable is actually staying in one place for a longer period of time, or not even staying in one place but like returning over and over again. And I love having the same people, but I guess it's like knowing that I've seen a lot of it and it's not like new, but I do want to put down roots, and actually this is like the next uncomfortable thing.
Yeah. Does that seem scarier than not?
Yes, like
Yeah.
I don't know how to stop. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So now
That's
I'm
so
working through the
interesting.
struggles of that. Yeah,
Yeah. So, but it'd be kind of cool though, because then you're like, go to these places you've already seen, but it's never gonna be the same trip twice, right? Like, even if you
exactly.
return to the same place every year for the rest of your life, you're always gonna have a completely different experience, and it's gonna be, you'll just experience on a deeper level.
Yeah. And I think the biggest change um of my realization to this is like I hear, my best friends complain about like certain issues that they're having, and those are issues that you only have when you stay in one place for a long time. And I was like, it's weird you're complaining about them, and I know inherently that like I would not be happy being in a situation like that, but I'm almost jealous of the problems that you have of staying in one place, because it means you're like growing those relationships and putting roots down. And I will travel is for sure forever going to be a part of me, and I do want to have like multiple homes. I will never be, I think, like a main, you know having a very normal life of staying in one place. But um yeah, I think I'm in the slightly slowing down mode.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different chapter. Like you said before, it's just a
Exactly.
season. This is just, I mean, you've really lived life to the fullest this far, and there's something more. And if that's what's pulling you, then dang well that's what you need to do. And
Yeah,
you don't even know how long it'll last. You might do this for
exactly.
5 years and then be like, I don't know, I'm going to try whatever, Mars next or something.
Exactly.
I don't
Although
know.
after visiting the, where is it, the Houston Space Center, I put go to space on my bucket list.
Ah, I knew it.
That museum was incredible.
That's so
Oh,
funny. You could go with Katy Perry or something, right?
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Maybe when
jeez.
the price to enter is not $5 million.
You think? Because if you're making that with your blog, we need to have a private conversation because I'm doing something wrong.
Hopefully soon.
Yes, manifest, manifest. So, Kat, what would be your advice to women who are afraid to take that first leap? You've had such
uh,
a wealth of information and experiences. How would you give that back now?
yeah. So Taken from the Nike quote, I would say just do it.
Yes.
The first time is extremely hard, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. When you first step out of that, initial uncomfortable box, it is so hard. You have to get over yourself, get over society, everything that you grew up learning. And, you might come into hardship, but, you just have to know that you have the ability, you can trust in your own gut, and that is so empowering. And crazily enough, I would say the second time might be even harder because you come back, and when you want to leave the second time, you're even thinking, like, is it going to live up to the first time? Um, but then I promise every time after that, it gets easier, and it's applicable to literally everything else in life.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I got chills. I'm like, let's go somewhere. So cool. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and sharing your life story with us. That was so incredible. It was so fun talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where can people
Mhm.
follow your adventures? I'll put
Oh,
the
yeah.
links in the description, but go ahead and tell us where people can follow you.
Okay, yeah. So I have two travel blogs. One is US based called daytripnomad.com. And then I have a world travel blog called Nomadicated.
Very cool. So I'll put those links in the description for you guys. Be sure to follow Kat. She's got tons of like tips and tricks. Plus, you can just kind of check in and see what she's up to these days. And you'll want to hang out with us next week too, because I'm bringing Kat back for another story time. All right. So we'll see you guys then. All right. Bye, Kat.
Bye.